Alright, now for the part you've all been waiting for, we are finally going to create our pieces of wearable artwork. Now, start by looking at your design sheet from last week, and if you haven't already, decide which one you would like to turn into an actual piece of clothing. Now, your teacher is going to kindly cut out a large piece of this creamy white fabric called calico in the shape of your cape or apron. When you get your piece, look carefully back at your design that you did last week and try and transfer the main lines, not every single blotch or every single stripe, but just the most important shapes and lines that you have on your design. And you'll use Texture for that. Don't worry if you make a mistake because it's all going to get covered up in paint anyway. Once you've done that, it's time to paint. Now start by selecting a background colour. I've decided on yellow for mine because my design has a lot of yellow on it. So I cover the whole thing in this nice yellowy orange colour really. Once that's dry, I can start adding the black lines over the top. Now I'm deliberately going for this slightly scruffy, scratchy type of look, because if you look back at the original butterfly's wing, it's got all these feathery or scaly, dusty bits on it. And I'm using what's called a dry brush technique for that. It's where you have a paintbrush with very little paint on it. If you want to smooth the line, you'll need to have more paint on your brush. Now here's another technique you can use. You can use these rubber stamps, which come in a variety of textures and patterns. Once again, you start with a background colour, and then you use a roller to gently apply a layer of another colour that's going to go over the top. And you gently press your stamp down onto the fabric, careful it doesn't shift too much, and you can repeat that over and over to create some really interesting patterns. You can even stack stamps on top of one another, which creates some really interesting designs. But now back to my cape. Now that it's dry, I'm going to add a button onto the front so I can fasten it around my neck. So start out by selecting a button that you like. I've selected this nice big yellow one. Then go to the tabs at the top of your cape, which are going to be where it fastens around your neck. Take one of the tabs and fold it over a bit. That's going to become your buttonhole. So take a pair of scissors and very carefully make a tiny cut in the fold. Try and make the cut about half the width of the button. Unfold it and you should have a good buttonhole. Just check that the button actually fits through the hole. If it doesn't, you might need to make it a little bit wider. Then you need to take a needle and thread. Now I've got to be a bit careful with needles. Feed the thread through the top of the needle. You might need an adult to help you. And then pull the thread through and make sure it's doubled over. Get the two ends of the thread together and make a big loop and tie them in a large knot. You might actually need to tie a couple of knots on top of each other. Now fold up the other tab on your cape, not the one you just cut into, the other one, and you're also going to fold that one over. But this time, instead of cutting it, you're going to drive the needle through the back of it and pull it through the front. Pull the thread all the way through until you feel it catch on the knot. Then go back the other way. Do this a couple of times until you think it's pretty sturdy and it's not going to come out if you yank it hard enough. Then do the same thing with the button in place, making sure you go through all of the holes in the button. When you think the button's secure, tie a little knot in the thread at the back and then snip off the excess thread. Make sure you put your needle down somewhere safe, like in a pincushion. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I've noticed that the edges of my cape are a little bit shabby, so I'm going to give them a trim. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to cut out that butterfly wing shape that I had in my design. If you're a bit nervous about doing this, that's okay. You can borrow a piece of chalk from the teacher to mark out where you're going to cut before you actually cut it. Now, your cape could be finished now, or you might have other ideas. You might add beads or sequins or big pieces of transparent fabric over the top, whatever you'd like to do. But when everyone's finished, you can share your creations with the class. Talk about what you did and how you felt while you were doing it. Did you have to make any changes to your design? Is there anything you'd change if you had to do it again? Also, what do you like about other people's designs? What do they like about yours? And what could you do with this project? Could it be made into a play, a school assembly, a fashion parade, a story about animal patterned superheroes? The choice is yours.